Okay, so get ready for this, right? What if life is like a video game? I know, it sounds crazy, but that's what we're diving into today. We found this YouTube video, and the guy who made it, Chase Hughes, he reviews like the Earth, like it's a video game. He's got character stats and quests, and even talks about glitches, like in a game.
It's a pretty cool way to think about like some big questions,
Yeah.
about how we actually live our lives.
Totally. And I think you're the perfect person to help break this down because you're always finding these amazing insights, even when we're looking at stuff that's kind of out there. So today we'll start with how Hughes looks at character creation, then we'll look at the gameplay, and last, what he says about leveling up in this whole life as a video game thing. Ready?
Let's do it. Boot up the deep dive.
Okay, so character creation. Hughes says that in this Earth game, your character's good stuff and bad stuff, like their strengths and weaknesses, they're hidden when you start. You don't get a character sheet like in other games. He actually says, and this is a quote, "The deep traits, the strengths and the flaws that your character has are kept hidden from you on purpose." So what do you think about that?
Well, it makes you think about what the game designers, if there are any, are trying to do with that kind of setup, Like, are
Yeah.
they pushing us to explore and experiment to figure out who we are just by trying things out and sometimes messing up?
Yeah, it's like a real-life RPG where you have to level up your self-awareness just to understand your basic abilities. And Hughes uses this really funny way of talking about bringing new players into the game. He says he committed to a character named Michelle, and they had a new player, Hannah, spawn in the tutorial phase, which he calls childhood.
It is funny the way he puts it, but it's also, like, deep down, it's true. Bringing a new life into the world is a huge commitment.
Yeah.
It changes the whole game for everyone involved, the effects it has, the quests they share, the whole story. It's a lot.
Okay, let's get into how the game actually works. Hughes talks about these things he calls glitches, which are basically problems in the system. He says it's like having too many programs running in the background, and that leads to lag. I was thinking about all the tabs I have open on my computer right now, and how that's probably what's happening in my head a lot of the time.
It's a really good comparison, actually. Think about it. Things you haven't finished, emotional baggage, distractions, all those things, they use up energy and they slow you down. It's like they're preventing you from, really using your full potential. Makes you wonder, what programs are you running that are slowing you down?
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one to think about. I'm going to have to ponder that later. But for now, let's talk about another game mechanic that Hughes brings up. Entropy.
Ugh, entropy. Yeah, that force that kind of pulls everything toward mess and chaos. We can see it in the world around us, like how things break down over time. But it happens in our lives too, in our minds and with our goals. If we don't work to keep things in order, things fall apart.
It's like when your desk gets so cluttered you can't find anything.
Exactly. And then it takes you twice as long to get anything done because you're always looking for things, getting distracted, and losing momentum. That's entropy working against you. Procrastination, that's another example of entropy in action.
So we've got glitches and entropy, two big challenges in this Earth game. What else do we need to be careful of?
Well, Hughes also talks about a few other key things like connections and love, having meaningful work, keeping a positive mindset, and just taking care of your health. It's like those are all essential mechanics in the game.
Yeah.
He makes it sound like if we focus on those, we can actually play better.
It makes sense. If your character's health is low and they have no energy, they're not going to get far in any quest. Now, this is where Hughes gets a bit controversial. He says that one way to hack the game, like to shut down those extra programs, is to use psychedelics.
That's a big one. And to be clear, we're not saying you should go out and do illegal things, but, more and more research is being done on the potential benefits of psychedelics, like in therapy and stuff.
Right. And we'll definitely link to some more information about that for people who want to learn more. But for now, let's maybe move on from the more controversial hacks and talk about some of the regular ways to level up in this Earth game.
Well, one thing Hughes really focuses on is self-knowledge. He says it's not enough to just know your basic stats. You've got to dig deeper. Understand what motivates you, what your values are, what you're afraid of. It's all about that inner work, self-reflection and introspection.
So it's like going beyond just customizing how your character looks and really getting into the nitty-gritty of their stats and abilities. And that's something we can actually work on in real life, right?
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
just like some video game idea.
Oh, totally. And Hughes actually has some specific advice on how to do this. He talks about closing those programs we talked about, the ones running in the background and using up energy. It's like decluttering your mind and your emotions so you can focus better and get more done.
So it's like mindfulness combined with like Good time management.
Exactly. And guess what else he says? He suggests getting a coach.
Wait, you mean like a therapist or a mentor? So is therapy basically a cheat code?
Maybe not a cheat code, but it can definitely give you an edge in the game.
I'm starting to see how this video game way of thinking can actually be helpful. It's like a new way to look at our challenges and see them as chances to grow.
Exactly. And when it comes to growth, Hughes talks about how important it is to see the difference between quick pleasures and real enjoyment. He says that real enjoyment comes from finding your purpose in the game, not just chasing distractions.
Okay, so it's about focusing on the long term, the stuff that matters to you, not just the stuff that gives you a quick hit of, good feelings.
Exactly. Now, are you ready to talk about the end game? Like how Hughes thinks players are judged when they, finish the game?
Absolutely. Tell me everything.
Well, Hughes has this really interesting idea of a secret grading system.
All right, so we've covered character creation and some of those basic game mechanics like glitches and entropy. But how do you actually win this Earth game? Is it like getting rich and famous?
Actually, that's where it gets really interesting. Hughes says winning isn't about those things at all. It's more about like mastering yourself, getting your actions to match up with your values, and doing something that helps others. It reminds me of some of the stuff you find in like philosophy and spiritual traditions.
So it's not about competing against other players.
Not in the usual sense, no. Hughes is all about understanding the meta, as he calls it. It's like understanding the whole game, the rules, the way it works, everything. When you get the big picture, you can make better choices, the kind that make your experience, more fulfilling and meaningful.
So it's like zooming out and seeing the whole game board, not just your next move.
Yeah, exactly. And Hughes thinks this meta-awareness can help us avoid falling into that NPC trap we talked about. When you see the distractions and the things trying to keep us in a loop, we can actually take back control and make better decisions.
So it's about being aware of the things that try to control us, like in a game, and then deciding to play differently.
You got it. It's about writing your own story, choosing your own quests, and forging your own path, not just following what everyone else is doing.
Which kind of brings us back to that framework for designing quests that Stephen Kotler talks about. He's all about autonomy, being free to choose your own adventure instead of just following a pre-programmed path.
Right. And Hughes builds on that, saying we should focus on making our strengths better instead of getting stuck trying to fix all our weaknesses. He thinks that when we use our natural talents and abilities, we can become masters and have a bigger impact on, like, the game world.
I feel that. We spend so much time trying to get better at the things we're bad at that we forget about the things we're already good at. It's like trying to level up every single skill in a game instead of focusing on the ones your character is good at.
Yeah, and that can be a big waste of time and energy. Hughes says we should figure out what we're naturally good at and use those things to our advantage.
So it's about playing to your strengths, like picking the right character class in a game, something that fits your abilities.
Exactly. And here's another interesting thing. Hughes is totally cool with failure. He sees it as a chance to learn. Like in video games, you're supposed to fail a bunch of times before you get it right. It's how you learn.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't even know how many times I've had to reload a save after getting like totally destroyed by a boss. But every time I die, I learn something new, like how the game works, what the enemy's weak spots are, even my own strengths.
And it's the same in real life. Setbacks and challenges are going to happen, but they can help us get better. It's all part of learning.
I love that, reframing failure as a learning experience. It makes those setbacks less painful and helps you see them as chances to grow.
Right. And speaking of support, Hughes also says it's super important to build a good team. Like in a lot of games, you need allies to get past obstacles and reach your goals. It's the same in this Earth game. Having friends, family, mentors, people who are there for you, that can make all the difference.
It's like getting your party together before you head out on a quest, right? You want folks with different skills who can help you out along the way.
Exactly. It's knowing we don't have to do everything ourselves. And Hughes also talks about managing your character's resources. This means things like your time, energy, money, even your mental and emotional well-being, like making sure you have enough health points and mana to tackle the quests and challenges.
That's such a good way to put it, and so true. If you're always running on empty, you're not going to be at your best.
Exactly. So it's all about choosing wisely how you spend your resources, making choices that line up with your goals. Now, let's get back to those secret endgame ratings Hughes was talking about.
Yes. Tell me more about those. These aren't about how much money or fame you get, right? It's about how you played the game.
Right. It's about the choices you made, not just the final score. So the first rating is decision perspective. It's all about picking love over fear.
Okay, that sounds deep. But what does it actually mean, like in real life?
It means approaching life with compassion and empathy, being willing to connect with others even when it's hard. It's about acting from a place of, you know, abundance, not scarcity, generosity, not fear. Think of it as making choices that match up with, like, your best self.
So recognizing that we're all connected and acting in ways that help not just ourselves, but others too.
Exactly. And that leads us to the next rating, connection to others. It's all about building good relationships, ones that are based on understanding, working together, and forgiveness.
So realizing that we're not competing against each other, but are all part of something bigger, right?
Exactly. The third one is adaptability. Like we said, life is full of surprises, just like a good video game. The ability to learn and change when things get tough, that's super important for leveling up.
So it's not about avoiding hard stuff, but learning how to deal with it, right?
Exactly. Next up is authenticity. This one's all about living in a way that's true to yourself. Being genuine, following your heart, making choices that feel right for you, even if they're not what other people expect.
It's like having the guts to be yourself, even if it means being different.
You got it. And finally, we have contribution. This is about giving back, making a positive impact, leaving the world a little better than you found it.
So it's knowing we're part of something bigger and using what makes us special to make the world a better place.
Exactly. And get this. Hughes says these ratings are only revealed when you're done with the game.
Whoa, that's kind of intense. It's
It's
like the game is watching everything you do, and then at the end, it's like, here's your scorecard.
It definitely makes you think about the choices you're making, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's a reminder that everything we do, every choice, adds up to our final score in this game of life. But Hughes also gets that this Earth game, it can be really tough sometimes.
Yeah, he doesn't try to pretend it's easy. He says there will be rough quests, obstacles, and even times when you feel hopeless.
Like those levels where you keep dying and you're like, am I ever going to get past this?
But even then, he reminds us that we get to choose how we react, how we face things.
So it's not about avoiding the tough parts, but about choosing how we handle them.
You got it. We can quit, or we can keep going. We can let fear win, or we can be brave and choose love. And even when we screw up, we can learn from it and try again. Which actually brings us to another important point. Hughes is big on self-care.
Okay, so like making sure your character gets enough sleep, eats well, and takes care of their injuries.
Exactly. Just like in a game, if your character is tired, hurt, or burnt out, they're not going to do well. So taking breaks, recharging, and looking after your body and mind, that's essential.
So self-care isn't selfish, it's a smart move.
Exactly. And Hughes also says it's okay to ask for help when you need it. Friends, family, therapists, mentors, anyone you trust, we don't have to go it alone.
It's like calling in backup when you're facing a super tough boss.
That's it. And even when things are really dark, Hughes wants us to remember that there's always hope. There's always a new quest, a new challenge, a new chance to grow. He says, never give up on your dreams, no matter how hard it gets.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what are you thinking about? What's really sticking with you about Hughes's idea of, winning this Earth game?
Yeah, what insights are you taking away from all this? What strategies are you going to try in your own life?
And how can you use all of this
Yeah.
to create a more fulfilling and meaningful experience?
These are some great questions to think about as we head into the final part of our deep dive. We'll explore some final thoughts on how to really level up your life.
All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into this whole Earth game idea. We've been talking about how Chase Hughes compares life to a video game, like with character creation, glitches, those secret endgame ratings, and even designing your own quests.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It really has. But I'm kind of curious, like, what do you think is the big takeaway here? What's Hughes trying to say with this whole video game metaphor?
I think ultimately he's saying, like, we have more power than we realize. We're not just playing the game, we're creating it. We can choose our own adventures, learn new skills, and, shape our own destinies.
Yeah, it's like he's giving us the controller and saying, go make this game amazing.
Exactly. And he's also saying that, like, the journey matters just as much as the destination. Even in those awesome video games, the best parts are the challenges, the times you mess up, the times you win. Think about, would a game be any fun if you could just skip to the end and win without even trying?
No way. The struggle, the learning, that's what makes it fun. And Hughes also talks about how important it is to celebrate those wins, right? Like acknowledge when you do something good.
Oh, for sure. It's just like in a game, when you level up or finish a quest, those little wins keep you motivated and show you that you're making progress.
Speaking of progress, one thing that stuck with me was Hughes's focus on contributing, you know, like helping others. He seems to be saying that real satisfaction comes from making the world a better place, not just focusing on yourself.
Yeah, that's a big one. It's like he's suggesting that all our little quests, they're all part of a bigger mission, like a team effort to make the game world a better place.
And that doesn't have to be some huge thing, right? It can be small stuff like being nice to someone, volunteering, or even just doing work that you believe in.
Exactly. Every nice thing we do, every time we try to make a difference, it helps the whole game world. It's about understanding that we're all connected and our actions affect everyone.
So before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with some questions to think about. If life really is a game, what kind of game do you want to play? What kind of character do you want to be? What adventures are you most excited about? And what do you want to be remembered for when the game is over?
Those are some great questions to really consider. Think about them, let them guide you as you play this worth game. You're the one in control.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Go out there, level up your life, make it amazing. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride.
And until next time, game on.